happening, y'all? So, ever since last week, I've literally been kind of obsessed with Nathan and his stories, and I've watched now multiple different podcasts with him on there, and I mean, kind of very similar to Jamie. He's just filled with information and a spiritual warrior, to say the least. And I mean, y'all, we're in a battle. I think we all know that, right? It's like the battle is on and time is now, right? We get that. Or at least we should get that. And I mean, he's just overflowing with information, and this, it does get into darkness, but it's like, y'all, we gotta snap out of it. Fear only him. Everything else, we're here to engage. We are warriors, and the battle is on, y'all. Let's hear this, y'all.
I'm not good with organization, okay? But I did just hire a manager, so he's gonna help me. But I'm terrible with keeping track of things. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that in one way or another have gone through a recruitment. And one of the guys sitting at this table started manifesting Lilith about, a year ago? We had to cut the cameras. But 692, the listeners probably know this. If you don't, listen to it. It's about this guy who was a child, like you, who found himself walking through a cave system. We haven't even touched the underground yet with you. Found himself walking through a cave system, and it opens up into, this is my recollection, and sometimes I get the stories crossed because I hear very similar things, but it opened up into a large room, and there's a man standing there dressed in a suit who is recruiting him to work for him. I have a friend, JR, in Indiana, who was, as an adult, having sex with his girlfriend. All of a sudden, he's gone, walking through a cave system. He gets to his big open room, and he actually hears a voice saying, "You're now entering the throne room." Man dressed in a suit, recruiting him to work for him. He rejected. He said no. He found himself back in his bedroom, and as far as I know, hasn't been recruited since. The kid accepted, and it started this entire life of supernatural warfare. I believe he was operated on by what was labeled by him as angels and Nephilim. I believe Nephilim, fallen angels, more than likely fallen angels, but he was operated on to give special abilities. He's tried to get out of this. I haven't been able to talk to the guy. It was his friend that was relaying the story. But he has tried to get out of this, and trying to get out of it is what spawned the guy I was talking to, his part of the story, because this entity came for him. What you just described is so similar to what I've heard before, and those are just two people. I have another guy in Indiana who I've never even talked to on the show or anything, like maybe one day, but he said to me randomly, before I even released this episode, he was like, I know this is gonna sound crazy, but when I was a kid, I was in like some kind of weird realm, lucid dream, and I was recruited by an entity to work for it. I have a guy in British Columbia who's an active witch who was recruited to work for this entity. There's several I'm missing, but it's a common theme. And you and I, before we started talking or recording officially, I started describing this, and maybe with what I was describing to you then doesn't match this now, but like you mentioned this idea of Finders Club, and my brain started glitching when you said that, because calling it the Finders Club is probably one of the more accurate ways that I view this. And you have no idea, dude. Like, I have yet to find one person who has been recruited by the same entity. It's always a different entity. And when you call it the Finders Club, it goes right into my line of thinking and what I've been trying to convey to people, which is like, yes, Satan versus God, fallen angels, all this stuff, but there is like levels to this. And if you're heavenly angels and you find the will to rebel against God, I gotta think you got an ego enough to think that you're better than your peers. And as much as we're in a war of God versus evil and all that stuff, I think there's sub-wars that are happening, that these entities are warring with each other. The Finders Club, trying to pick people, recruit people to come work for them.
There's teams.
Dude, like, I had no idea how, like, I didn't even know about, I know for a fact you never mentioned that on another show, because that would have triggered me right away, because this story that I released in October last year, I've held on to for 3 years. I've had it since I lived in Pennsylvania, because I was tracking things down. I've been able to verify so much of this story. And without going into great detail about all that, I want to just bring it back to, like, this is the direction I want to go right now, because this story from last October that I released, and the sub stories that I've uncovered in what you're saying, has been such a molding thing for me in my life to understand how deep the warfare goes. And I mean, I don't understand. Like, I mean, I'm trying to understand. Like, I'm not a theologian and stuff, but I have this like bubbling sense, if that makes sense. Like, I don't have the words to articulate what I feel inside about this, but like, I passionately believe every day I wake up is a day of battle and war that I've been born into. And stories that you just shared and the stories that I just shared are manifestations, visual representations, story representations of what that war is always. And I need people to understand how serious this is. We talked about the idea of supernatural existence and people not believing it. Like, you have to understand, it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter. This is reality. And the more we get closer to the end, the more the supernatural is going to spill out into this realm. And you will, at some point, have no choice but to understand, to acknowledge that it's real. You said before you sat down, we were talking about the kids and how the kids are going to see things that beyond our wildest dreams. And when you say kids, I can say my kids, your kids, to their kids. I don't know, but I do know that the future generations are going to experience and be exposed to the supernatural realm in ways that Eileen talked about on a podcast.
Yeah.
And so
it will be their normal.
Yeah.
It will become their normal.
And it's all reversing back to what it used to be.
Back to Babel.
Dude, so giving that word vomit to you, feel free.
There's no vomit there, bro. That was pure.
I needed to lay that out to you, so you hopefully understand where I'm coming from on this. I've never been recruited. I 100% believe people have been recruited. They are being recruited. It's active. It's happening. And they are trying to come to collect what they believe is theirs. And this initial guy that I talked to about his friend, he tries cutting it off. I guess he thought he did it right until it wasn't right anymore. And this entity came collecting. I've heard people describe man in a black suit several times, to the point that I have a hard time remembering who described what it was wearing, but a lot of times black description, it's wearing black or black suit. And I used to think, when I first started looking at all this, I was like, what is this entity? Is it Satan? Is it an ancient god? Now I'm coming to understand the man in the black suit, or the man dressed in black, isn't an entity. It is multiple entities. And I strongly believe that they are in competition with each other, the Finders Club. And you saying Finders Club, like I wrote it down, and then you telling me that, I had no idea that, and maybe the Finders Club is something completely different, but in my brain, the way it's connecting, I'm like, that's essentially what these entities are doing. It's like a competition of finding their next slave. And
Their next ambassador.
perfect way to say it.
Much different than their next slave. He elevated me from slavery. Do you understand? It's like when a king comes out and sits in a field with a slave, he has something in mind. He has a different agenda than what the slave thinks. What was I thinking about that day versus what was on his mind? It could not be more contrasting. Cannot even fathom the disparity between those two mindsets. But what was in my mind was desperation for justice, willing to do anything to have one shot at one of these perverts. Just I wanted to die killing them. That's it. That's all I wanted. I wanted to die. That addiction to death was because the first covenant I entered into was with death. It was with death. Different entity, critical information, Anubis, Anut, Hermes, different entity. The final enemy that is thrown into the lake of fire is death. He will be consumed. That's not happened yet, y'all. That entity was my first covenant. Well, that entity was created in the garden. It said, for in the wisdom of Solomon, the envy of the devil, death was conceived. That conception point for death came through the birthing womb of envy, lust, covetousness. So when I saw the devil, I had lust, like lust. When I saw him the second time, I was consumed with lust. Like I was looking at the most beautiful thing that I'd ever seen, regarding it with just a desire to be it, to put it on myself. I was caught up between these two worlds because one side of me was a harbinger of death, but I was being invited to be elevated to a bigger kingdom, to the dragon's kingdom. And this creates animosity. This creates tension, because my familiar spirit, not death himself, I've never witnessed what I believe was the actual entity death. I believe I only ever interacted with one of his messengers, one of his servants, a spiritual being who had physical powers, but not death. He sent his princes.
That's my girl.
Wow.
Yeah, thanks to Children's Claritin, she can play without allergies in the way.
I should try that for my son.
It's pediatrician recommended and provides 24-hour non-drowsy relief. Plus, the chewables are dye-free.
Claritin clears. Use as directed.
Sorry about that, y'all.
The devil didn't. He came to me, and this was an act of love to me. It's communicated to me love. Like I mattered enough that someone who actually regarded me would sit down and talk to me rather than just confuse me more. But when the next time I saw him was in the London Bridge, and inside the chambers that are beneath it, the foundations of it, they would set up throne room, literal throne room with a black throne, and that had gold, like almost like a obsidian colored black granite, but then it had this fine gold inlay, just beautiful, and it was like light almost emanated from it. It was just beautiful.
This was under London Bridge? Okay.
And there's an old world tunnel system to this gathering point that the United States military tapped into back in the 30s and 40s during World War II, when they built what's called Site 6 in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. It wasn't a city at all. It was just a desert, a place near death. That is the cardinal point, a meeting place where the gods, these immortals, physically would meet and have parley. They would meet and interact there without threat of retribution and violence. that they could have conversations there and make plans and renew covenants or break them at that site. That was a place where they would gather in the desert. So when Site 6 was built, they built in underground infrastructure to supply and resupply United States Army Air Base, because the Air Force wasn't there yet. It was a rest and recuperation zone, a secret place where soldiers and pilots could come and rest and recuperate.
Site 6.
Site 6.
Lake Havasu.
Lake Havasu became from Site 6. Like Site 6 is what it was named. It was a dot on a map, classified map. That's all it was. Robert P. McCulloch is who bought Site 6 from the military and from the state of Arizona. He bought the territory there. There was no lake. They built eventually what's called the Parker Dam. Parker Dam is what feeds the vast majority of water and electricity, not only to Phoenix, but over to Los Angeles. They built an entire tunnel system that takes that bloody, infested water I just described to you. That's what people drink in these cities all over the West Coast that are in deserts. That's what people drink in Phoenix and Tucson, and they pump that water and that electricity, which is generated power from that iniquity, and they literally power up the world. That's their gathering place. That when Robert P. McCulloch, he hired a man named C.V. Wood, who was the chief architect who built Disneyland.
I was going to say, I knew that.
And this intermingles with the Jason projects and the people that are in Southern California that were doing secret scientific experiment projects on children and mind control operations. He literally, his Wikipedia page has been edited since, but it used to literally say he did MK experiments on that lake. Robert P. McCulloch did. And they built a pleasure island, a little island in Lake Havasu City Lake, which is a sovereign territory of the city of London. It's an embassy for ambassadors. Different representatives of different nations can go there and are immune from prosecution, just like Disney World is in Florida. It is not United States territory. This is why when Governor DeSantis is trying to enforce taxes, they invoke a clause which says, oh, by the way, we're under the crown.
Yes.
Yeah, which crown? The red dragon. If you look at this, the heraldic symbol of the city of London, it is guarded by the red dragon. That is the financial empire of the world, and they own territories for their ambassadors all over the world. This is one of them. That little place.
And just we're talking
Site 6.
Site 6, Lake Havasu, Arizona. And when you say ambassador, you're talking about. Are we talking about like human ambassadors? Or are we talking about
humankind and the spiritual kind?
This is a place
they
for
have
that.
to meet. Do you understand?
Yeah.
You got to talk.
So these are portal
It's
locations.
not phone calls
that they come and meet.
like. It wasn't always phone calls. Remember, they led mankind to build the technology so they could call us. Before this, people interfaced like this.
Yes.
You had to meet with your ambassador. That's why he calls us in the scriptures ambassadors. He's trying to communicate to us something that we're divorced from, because most people aren't raised by spies working for the State Department and children of the CIA. But when you do, you raise them up understanding we are all here. The only reason we live here in this country, in this territory, in this region, is to serve the will of the ambassador, to serve the sovereign that we represent. That's how they operate. It's the same MO. That's why intelligence organizations are all patterned and fractured off of the Kingdom of Darkness's hierarchy, because it's one filled with subterfuge. But in that, when they brought the London Bridge.
All right, y'all. So I'll just, until this video gets way too long, right? We'll stop there. But hello, the underground, right? We all know, whether you want to call it the deep state or whatever, the secret people that control the world. Well, that's definitely what they're talking about. And we all know Satan controls this world, and just like he said, I don't necessarily think it's a lot of people that are recruited, but then again, I know nothing. I know nothing. But Hollywood again, you guys remember that one movie, The Men in Black? I mean, I don't know, I want to go watch that movie again. Anywho, just felt like sharing. This is real. I think we've all known it's real, but Nathan is just a complete warrior for the Lord, and it's an insane shock that he's not been taken out yet, and how he's still surviving. Only we can say thank you, Lord. Literally, that's the only reason he's being protected, because the Almighty is so much stronger than these entities that they're talking about, and we just need to truly get on board, y'all. We're talking 100%. You can't be just a Sunday, Wednesday checklist churchgoer, and you might read your Bible once or twice a week or something like that, right? It's like when you're in your car, I hope you're listening to worship and you're praising the Lord. When you're going to the grocery store, you're just engaging with people and just somehow, some way, some shape or form, bringing the Lord up somehow, if it's possible. That's what we are called to do, is build disciples, right? Let's build ambassadors. Let's build the army. We are warriors. Let's go, y'all, because the time is now. Right now. Alright. God is good, y'all. Goodness gracious. All the time. And all the time, God is just so good. Thank you, Lord Jesus, the Messiah, Yeshua.